so excited to be doing this Zoom meeting, to be talking about returning to swimming. So we have been working up to this day for a very long time. So first of all, I hope you've all been well in lockdown. 4 months has been a very long time to either been in lockdown or definitely to be away out of the water. So introductions first, and then I'll tell you what we're going to be talking about today. So my name's Catherine Ferguson. I think I've met some of you, not all of you. I'm on the committee here at Woking Swimming Club and have had 3 swimmers come through the swimming club, all through associates and now up through the main squads. And now my youngest has literally just gone away to university and still swimming. So I'm joined today by Helen Rose, who's the head of associates, who I'm sure you all know, and along with Nigel Griffin and Ruth Whiddett, who's also our COVID lead officers. Both Ruth and Nigel are our lead COVID officers. So first of all, let me talk about logistics of how we're going to work today. So I think by now, Nigel's probably put you all on mute. Not because we don't want to listen to you, but because if we don't have you on mute, then we get a lot of disruption throughout the meeting. So what we will be asking is that if you do have a question, if you can save it to the end is good, but if not, you can either put it into the chat or you can raise your hand. There's a way of raising your hand, and Nigel will take your question and unmute you, and we can answer those as we go through or towards the end of the presentation. So what are we here to talk about then? Well, I think we've all missed swimming, and so we're going to talk about returning to swimming and what that's going to look like. So what I will say up front is that both Ruth and Nigel, who are joining us today as our lead COVID officers, have just put a huge amount of work in the background, following some Swim England guidance that's been put out over the last few weeks, producing policies, putting procedures in place, and really working with our pool operators to make sure that we do everything we possibly can within the guidance to make it as safe as possible for your swimmers as they return to swimming. So what are we going to talk about today is a little bit about what you guys hopefully will do before you drop your swimmers off, a little bit about the drop-off and check-in procedures, how the sessions will run, and then a little bit about collecting your swimmers at the end of it. And I'll just touch briefly on the code of conduct that is in place for both swimmers and parents throughout this COVID-19 transition period. So whether you're returning in the summer, which is this weekend, or whether you're returning in September, it would be great if you could obviously pay attention as we go through this. Okay, so by now, hopefully you have received an email that states which temporary squad your swimmer is in. So that would be either squads 6 through 10. So most of you on the call should be either through squads 7 to 10. And I think just a few of the swimmers will be in squad 6. Slightly different procedures as we move forward, and I'll point those out as we go along. Hopefully what you've seen as well is for squad 6, there's a slightly different schedule in week 1 as we transition the main squads back to their swimming. And you will see you just have 1 swim in week 1, and then you ramp up to 2 swims as we move forward into weeks 2 to 5. So you will see on the schedule that squads 10 and 9 have 45 minutes each per week. And then as we get up to squads 7 and 8, we go up to an hour. There's a little bit of sound coming through, Nigel. I'm not sure where that's from. Maybe it's your mute.
Okay, I'll try someone. I think it was a race.
Okay, so what do we need to do then? Let's have a look at what we need to do before you leave home. So each pool has its own policies and will operate differently because you are all at Reeds. We can just talk about Reeds today. So following Swim England guidance, there will be no changing room facilities. And the toilets should only really be used in an emergency. So we do have access, but we've been asked by pool operators, and under the guidance of Swim England is they should only be really used when we really need to use them. So we really do implore you to ask your swimmers to use the bathrooms and the toilets before they leave home. But rest assured, if they desperately need to go, then they will be able to use one at Reeds Pool. So swimmers must arrive, shower at home before they come, and arrive beach ready. So what does beach ready mean? It means that they must arrive with their swimming trunks on, their swimming costumes on, and maybe with, I don't know, some hoodies on, or maybe a dressing gown, something warm on that they can put on after they get out of the pool. So they will be allowed one bag, and it would be great if they could bring with them a waterproof bag within which to put their clothes in once they've taken off, and put that into their kit bag to keep them dry for after they have swum. So small bag, their kit bag, and a waterproof bag to put their clothes in as they get themselves pool ready. So what do they need to bring? I think normal things: a couple of hats just in case one breaks, a couple of goggles with them, because your coach will not be able to lend you any equipment should your goggles break. So if you've got 2 pairs of goggles, an extra pair, we do ask you to bring those along. Still bring your water bottle along, please. It must be named, because of course, if it is left at the end of it, we will have to leave that at the pool, or actually throw it away and dispose of it. We'll not be able to get that bottle back to you. So face masks, let's talk a little bit about face masks. So the guidance from Swim England is that all swimmers should be wearing face masks to and from swimming. But under the government guidance, and looking at the age appropriate use of face masks, what we have decided is that from squads 1 to 6, face masks must follow the Swim England guidance and must wear a mask to and from swimming. So squad 6 swimmers, I'm talking to you here. But face masks for our squads 7 to 10, because they are younger and under the government guidance, are discretionary and basically up to you as parents, if you would like your swimmers to wear one to and from the pool. So squad 6, your swimmers will be asked to wear them all the way through check-in and all the way through to the pool, and then we'll take their masks off as they get ready for the pool. Okay, drop-off. We'll look at some diagrams in a minute. We'll make this a little bit clearer, guys. So drop-off and check-in, how's that going to work? So swimmers, we ask you to arrive, so parents, for you to bring your swimmers to Reed's Pool 15 minutes prior to the start of the session. So it's going to be really difficult if we do have latecomers. So we really do implore you to be there on time. We then will ask the swimmers to get out of their car close to the check-in time. And as I'll show you in a diagram in a minute, to line up outside the pool under the supervision of the COVID liaison officer, socially distanced 2 meters apart, whilst we wait for everybody to arrive. So just before they enter, the COVID officer will actually undertake a health assessment. You'll see in red there, a health assessment will take place. So what the COVID officers will be doing will be taking the temperature of each swimmer before they enter the building. Now, if they do find that that is higher than is the guidance, then they will let the lead coach know, and you will be informed, and unfortunately you will have to take your swimmer home. That absolutely is the guidance under Swim England. So probably just a little bit of a tip here. It'd be great perhaps if the swimmers aren't running around the car park before they are lining up to have their temperature taken. But fingers crossed, everything will be fine and all our swimmers will be admitted. But clearly, if your swimmer is feeling not well, if they are running a temperature or have any symptoms, it truly is your responsibility to not bring them to the swimming pool. So after they've been checked in by the COVID officer, the swimmers will then be directed to go poolside, and they're allocated a poolside place to leave their belongings. So in red at the bottom here, it's really important. Under the guidance of Swim England and our pool operators, viewing will not be possible by parents in the gallery or inside the pool. So parents and spectators will not be allowed. Indeed, we as swimming clubs will be allowed a limited number of people inside the pools under the guidance. So parents, what is there to do? Stay outdoors in the car if it's maybe a 45-minute session. If it's an hour-long session, there's some lovely coffee shops in Cobham that are just a couple of minutes away. But again, just to be very clear, and so you know that spectating will not be allowed within the pool. So just a little bit of a diagram to show you what that's going to look like. So here's a diagram of Reed's Pool. A little bit of cross over both the boys' changing room and the girls' changing rooms, because under the guidance they will not be allowed. So here we have your swimmers in blue and green, lined up outside next to the car park at Reed's. For those of you who have not been to Reed's, we will be actually sending out some instructions of where Reed's is and where to go within the school to find the swimming pool and the car park and the check-in point. So, as we've just talked about, here are your swimmers in green and blue, lined up, socially distanced, 2 meters apart, waiting for the COVID officer to give them their health check. And once they have done that, they will be escorted into the pool, as you can see in blue here in the blue arrows, and assigned a place on poolside that they will be able to then stay there, put their bag, get changed, and wait for the coaches to tell them that they're ready to come to the end of their lane. So what is going to happen then? So how will the sessions be run themselves? Well, each of the swimmers will be assigned a lane, and the coach will tell them, most likely on the day, some of the older squads may be told beforehand, and the coach will direct the swimmers when they should come to the lane and when they should start the set lengths. So every effort will be made by the coaches to social distance the swimmers as they go to the end of their lane and as they are stationary at the end of the pool. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. So under the guidance from Swim England, all the swimmers will swim clockwise around every lane. For those of you who have been in 25 meters pool before, you will see previously we had alternating clockwise, anti-clockwise, clockwise, anti-clockwise. And the reason why Swim England have asked us all to have clockwise around every lane is to minimize the amount of breathing and the number of times that not limiting the number of breathing, limit the number of times that our swimmers will cross each other throughout the lanes, as we have from lane 1 to lane 2. So Swim England have definitely given guidance that passing across the lane is fine. It's just if they're all swimming clockwise around every lane, it does limit the number of times that swimmers pass each other within the lanes. So how's that going to look like for your guys as they come into Reed's Pool? So for those of you in squads 7 to 10, you have smaller numbers within your squads. So you will have an absolute maximum of 4 in the lane, most likely much less than that, between maybe 3 and 4. So your swimmers will be lined up as we see here, numbered in blue at the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4 at the side of the lane, 5, 6, 7, 8, just as an example, at the top of the pool. And the coaches will then direct them when to get into the pool and to start swimming clockwise down the lane. Now, rest assured that they will be positioned within the lane according to their ability. So for those of you who may be concerned about your swimmers surviving a 25-meter pool, those of them with lesser ability or the younger swimmers will be placed in the outside lane so that they do have the wall there at each end. Rest assured that Reed's is quite a shallow pool, so it's not as deep as Woking swimming pool. So that's for squads 7 to 10. It will be a little bit different for squad 6 because you will be swimming with some of the older swimmers. So what will actually happen for squad 6 is that each swimmer will be assigned a number and a lane, and they will also be assigned a starting point within the lane and within the lane itself. So you can see here, let's just take lane 6 as an example at the top here. So lane 6, swimmer number 1 will start and finish at the wall. Blue swimmer swimmer number 2 will start and finish a few meters out from the wall, and blue swimmer number 3 will be starting and finish 5 meters away from the wall, so that everybody, when they are stationary, is socially distanced. So likewise, there will be 2 swimmers in green that will start at the other end of the pool, and again will be socially distanced as they start and finish. So it's going to take a little bit of getting used to for our older swimmers in squad 6 through 1 to have this assigned lane and assigned starting and ending point within the lane itself. Now, squad 7 and 10, don't worry too much about that right now, as the coaches are still working the guidance that just came out from Swim England just yesterday. We have updated guidance that came out, and we'll be working to see how we can manage to social distance your younger swimmers in the water when they are stationary. Clearly, social distancing is going to be a lot more challenging for our younger swimmers, but hopefully between the coaches and the COVID officer, they will find a way to maximize that as we go through the sessions. So how will the sessions be run any differently? Well, training will look very different in the near term, and the guidance that's been given out to Swim England is really, it's not about training for speed or training for competitions at this point in their swimming. It truly is transitioning all our swimmers back to training. And really everything that we're going to be doing is to really avoid using excessive breathing and to allow everybody to have that controlled climatization back to the swimming pool. So they will be looking at doing stroke technical work, some drills and skills. They may be doing a lot of underwater work within the 15 meters to improve their streamlining and transitioning back to swimming. And essentially they will be focusing on low and medium level aerobic work. So not going to be doing a lot of sprint work in the early weeks, although they may be working towards some short speed work towards the end of the summer sessions. During the kick sets, they may be using different techniques. For the older swimmers, for instance, they may be using what's called a flat kicking technique, where their face is actually in the water as opposed to above the water. So there's a whole swath of guidance that the coaches are now being given from Swim England that they will be working through over the next few days before we start at the weekend, to see how they will be adapting the normal training sessions for your swimmers. Okay, collection point. Let's talk a little bit about that. So your swimmers have now finished and the sessions ended. They will then be asked to go back to their allocated place on poolside where their clothes will be, and not to remove their costumes. Remember, the changing rooms will not be available, and simply put on their dry clothes, warm clothes that you have provided for them. So this is not as important when they arrive, but more important when they leave, that they will be having their wet swimming suits underneath the clothes that you do give them to go home in. The COVID liaison officer will then escort them to the designated exit that I will show you now and the next page. But at the end of the sessions, parents must be visible in the car park at the collection point to be able to receive their swimmers. So your swimmer will not be allowed out of the building until the COVID officer does see you in the car park. By all means, get out your car to collect your swimmer, but you must be visible to the COVID officers. So parents, we implore you, please do ensure that you are social distanced as you're in the car park and the collection area. And in red at the bottom here, really important that if you do go away for a coffee, please do ensure that you're back 10 minutes prior to the end of the session, because what we will actually have is very limited time to get all of our swimmers out the pool and then back into the pool for our next session. So just a little diagram to show what that will look like. Here's our swimmers in blue who've finished their session on pool deck. And once they are dressed, they will be asked to get dressed as quickly as possible and then be escorted out. The exit at Reeds will be different to the entrance. You can see the entrance just to the left there. So the main exit is in where the swimmers will come out in blue. So a one-way system that swimmers will come in and be lined up for the next session outside the pool, and will come in the pool one entrance, and you can see they're now exiting the pool and the other side of the girls' changing room out of the main exit. Okay, so let's just quickly take a look at two things, just the code of conduct for the swimmers and then the code of conduct for the parents. We have spoken about most of these measures, so I won't dwell on these two slides, but we will be directing you to all of these policies and pick-up policies and the code of conducts on the website via an email in the near term. So we've talked about face masks in red there and said that they're discretionary for squad 7 to 10, but squad 6, you really must wear them under the Swim England guidance. We haven't talked about yet about the hand sanitizer. So we do ask that swimmers and parents do bring their own hand sanitizer, and that perhaps you use it in the car before they do go out and actually line up at the queuing point, the collection point outside the pool. Please do ensure that the swimmers are socially distanced. Do remind them of that before you let them into the queue waiting outside of the pool. And we've already spoken about the arrival 15 minutes prior to the session, and we've talked all about what beach ready means, showering at home, coming with your swimming trunks already on, and having some warm clothes ready to take off and put on at the end of the session. So pretty simple for our swimmers. Code of conduct for parents. I think we've spoken about most of this, and probably one of the most important things in this is that your emergency contact details are up to date in Team Unify. So should there be a problem at all prior to them swimming, you will be there to take them home. But should there be a problem whilst they're swimming, then we need to ensure that in Team Unify, all of your contact details are up to date so that we can telephone you and tell you to come collect your swimmer earlier because they are feeling unwell. So by now, I hope that all parents have completed the health questionnaire and consent form for their swimmers. I've spoken already about kindly asking parents to social distance in the waiting area and outside in the car park. We've talked about the 15 minutes prior to the start of the session and arriving 10 minutes at the end of the session. And really, the code of conduct for parents is really just to ask you to go online and adhere to the drop-off and collection policies and the COVID policies that have been put in place on our website. And we will direct you to those at the end of the session. So I realised that was a very rapid run through of what it's going to look like for your swimmer, dropping your swimmer off, what it's going to look like for them as they come into the pool, what it's going to be like a little bit differently during the sessions, what it's going to be like as they get out, go to the poolside, get themselves dressed, and then escorted out by our COVID officers. So what we do need is our COVID liaison officers. We do need some volunteers to come forward and offer to be our COVID liaison officers. There's no training necessary, no experience is needed. We will give you some training. And really, what we'll be asking you to do if you do come forward will, as we've spoken about, check in those swimmers at the beginning, do that health screening and take their temperatures, liaise with the head coach should the swimmers fail that screening, help to manage that social distancing as they lead them into the pool and throughout the session, and really just being on poolside throughout the whole session to help manage that social distancing, and should anybody feel unwell or perhaps maybe need to be escorted to and not in the toilet facilities in an emergency. We will have an incident log of anything that does happen throughout the session, and so your responsibility would be simply to fill that in and just to note anything that did happen throughout the session. So again, just really implore any parents who would like to stay poolside and help out as a COVID officer, we will be asking you to email in at the end of this session. So I'm not going to talk too much about what the club's going to look like beyond the summer, but rest assured to say that we expect that social distancing measures still be in place in September throughout the rest of the year. All of the ASA Swim England and British swimming competitions have been cancelled at all levels, but we do know that there is a possibility that we may be able to hold internal championships, and so we are looking at how we may possibly be able to hold club championships and our Diddy championships throughout the autumn term as the guidance keeps getting updated by Swim England as we move through and the lockdown eases week on week. So probably rest assured that we are trying to bring up as much pool time as possible throughout the summer and into September. But in red at the bottom here, it remains to simply say pool time does remain scarce. It's a scarce resource. Not all of our pools we expect to come back up immediately, especially the schools. So we are working with all of our pool operators to bring them back as soon as possible. But we do have to respect each of our pool operators as they themselves work through their own policies and bring back up and bring us back into their facilities when they do feel comfortable with that. But what we are committed to doing is keeping swimming accessible to everybody and working really hard to strike a balance between pool hours with fewer swimmers. We have fewer swimmers in every pool and in each session, and keeping that on balance with our training fees and keeping that as cheap as possible, as clearly our pools stay just as expensive, but we have less swimmers in each of the pools. So watch out as we work with our pool operators to see what will swimming look like as we come back in September. So contacts, we do have any inquiries about your squads, then you can email in your coach. The welfare officers, there is the welfare email there, but any general inquiries as to how it's going to work with COVID-19, if you do send an email to workingsc.covid19@gmail.com, it will come to myself and to Ruth and to Nigel as the lead COVID officers, and we will try and answer your questions as much as we can. So that is as much as I had today. What I would probably ask now is if there has been any questions in the chat room, or if there are any questions that have come up, Nigel, we can unmute people as we go and take any questions.
Okay, so there was nothing in chat. So as there's only 31 of us, what I can do is allow people to unmute themselves and take questions. See how that goes.
Okay, so you have the ability, everybody, you have the power to unmute yourselves now. So please do. Any questions at all about any concerns or any questions as we took you through quite rapidly there, that new guidance that was flowing under Swim England.
I have a question. This is Erin.
Yes, Erin.
Hi. It sounds like you said at the end that for us to have an increase in pool time in the fall, or in the autumn, rather, that you need more pool operators to open their pools.
Yes, that's right.
So at the moment, you're maximizing pool time.
Right now, Erin, all we can say is that Pool in the Park, who are close to the public, we negotiated with them to open just for us as a club. So right now, as a Joe Public, you can't go to the pool. So they have opened their pool. So we know that Pool in the Park will be open. And Reeds have opened to us over the summer. So what the other facilities haven't yet put in place, Erin, is knowing what pool hours will be available to us in September as they still work through their own COVID policies.
Okay. And is it also true that there are some swimmers that aren't swimming over the summer that will want to come back in the autumn as well?
So the summer swimming has been voluntary, whether people wanted to sign up for this. So in autumn term, it will be simply everybody who is a squad member, we will be bringing back into swimming in some form as much as we can.
So that might mean, unless more pools open up, that might mean less, you'd have to squeeze in more people, it sounds like. Is that right?
We, at this point, Erin, we don't know how much pool time is going to be available to us in September, so that's really difficult for me to answer. All we can say is we're working over the next month with all our pool operators to see how much space we've got, how much time, and then being able to apportion the squad time appropriately. But I'd probably say that there's been huge uptake of our summer training. So Nigel, I'm not sure we've got the statistics, but there's very few swimmers that have said, no, I'm not going to be back till September.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so in total, there's 222, I think, for the summer.
So everybody's keen to get back into the water.
Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, sorry I couldn't be more specific, Erin, as we work with each of the pool operators. Yeah.
One of the slides mentioned that they might need some kit and that they'll be told by the coaches. Will they need any kit, or will they just literally need their goggles and sometimes they wear their fins, don't they?
Yeah, so Sadie, I think we're talking just about for associates here. So, you know, please do look at the guidance maybe you might have to ask somebody, if you're talking about white gold, I would say ask somebody who tunes into your white gold.
No, I was thinking about Elizabeth. Sadie's going to tune into white gold on her own later, but okay. Elizabeth, she's going to be in squad 6. I don't know whether she'll need any.
Yeah, so squad 6 will be asked to bring some kit, and hopefully we'll clarify what that is, Sadie, before the sessions start. But whatever kit they are asked to bring in squad 6, which will be there because they will be swimming with some of the older swimmers, absolutely, it's your responsibility to name them and clean them after every session. So for the associates themselves, you know, we had a last-minute move from Pool in the Park to Reed. So what I didn't say up front is, unfortunately, at the last minute, Pool in the Park came back and said, due to building works, the teaching pool at the pool wasn't available to us. And so we're really thankful that we could move our swimmers over to Reeds, because many of our swimmers obviously are desperate to get back in the water. So what we are trying to do is, what are we going to do with floats that we did have available at Pool in the Park? So if you do have your own float, please do bring that along and have it named. So as a show of hands, there's a great little hands there. Is it possible to show those of you who have your own floats? It's good to be able to just see how many people do have them.
Sorry, can I just ask, by floats you mean like the kicking boards, right?
A kicking board, yes. So a lot of swimmers do have them. So we are definitely going to try and get hold of some other ones. But if you do have a kickboard, then you are asked if you could bring that along. Now, under the Swimming England guidance, it does say that those equipment, you know, if they're dipped in the water, they should be fine. But we do ask you to clean those in between sessions before you do bring them back. Ruth, have you got anything to add to that?
No, not at the moment, no.
Can I ask, so the swimming starts on Sunday, so this coming Sunday or only the following one?
No, it's this Sunday at Reeds. So your sessions do start on Sunday this week at Reeds.
Thank you.
Excuse me, sorry. I just want to ask about the procedure when the children come out of the pool. So they have their swimming togs. They get back into their dressing gown or onesie or whatever they've with them after swimming. Is that right? Do they bring a towel, etc., or do we leave towels in the car?
Oh no, hey, a towel, absolutely. So they can dry themselves off with a towel, and all it is.
And they leave their kit on and just put on their dressing gown over it.
Dressing gown or hoodies or joggers, whatever you wanted to give to them to take to keep them warm. The only thing they can't do is obviously change poolside and take their swimsuit off. So towel, absolutely, because that will towel themselves down before they put their clothes back on.
Okay.
This is Stephen Worthy. Just as a parent of someone in, I think, squad 8 and squad 9, I've got an hour or, of waiting with a presumably slightly damaged child afterwards. So I don't know if you've got any advice or any plans for people in that situation. Because I can't really go back home and then come because I won't be able to do it in time.
Sorry, Stephen, I missed the beginning of that, but I thought in the middle of that. But I thought you said you've got a gap in the middle, swimmers at the beginning, swimmers at the end, with a gap in the middle of what to do. Well, clearly,
no. I've got swimmers in squad 8 and 9, so one runs straight after the other. So it's what to do with a damp swimmer for an hour in the car. If you had any plans or advice for that sort of situation.
Stephen, clearly what we can't do is house anybody inside the school. So, I do empathise, but they can change when they're in the car, out of their trunks. And all I can say is to kill that hour. There are, Cobham really is a short distance away if you wanted to go to a coffee shop. But yeah, what we can say is there are no facilities inside the school for anybody to come in and out. It really is a strict swimming and guidance in and out, Stephen. Yeah.
Hi, it's Michelle, Erin's mum.
Hi, Michelle.
I just had a quick question about a doctor's note. Erin has mild asthma. She doesn't need her inhaler all the time, but I got an email mentioning I need to contact the GP about that. I need to do that before the weekend, before I send her.
Nigel, do you want to take that one, or Ruth?
Yes, I mean, the recommendation is you do get a doctor's consultation. We know you can't get a letter in time or at all because at present they're not giving you letters at all, and to do that they'll charge you. We do ask that you get a consultation, and if you can give us their name and details, then we'll take it on your advice.
Okay, and if I can't get one before the weekend, do I send her still if I'm happy, or would you prefer I don't send her at all?
If it's mild, well, what do you think, Ruth?
I think it has to be at your discretion, actually, Michelle. I mean, you know how serious her asthma is. As I understand it, you're going to one of the COVID offices, so you will be there with her inhaler, I presume. So it's entirely at your discretion. I don't really feel we're in a position to advise individuals. If you are worried, I would recommend you get a medical consultation. It's entirely your call, I think.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Any more questions, guys?
Sorry, Catherine Smart. Did we talk about the pool, the clothes on the side of the pool at Reeds to be in a proper bag?
So we spoke briefly about it, Mark, but let's, if it wasn't quite clear, so what we did say is that, they're all going to have an assigned place poolside, but if you can bring a plastic bag for them to put their clothes in so that to make sure that they remain dry to put into their bag. So plastic bag, their clothes go into that plastic bag to keep them dry on poolside for when they get dressed at the end.
Okay, cool.